Right here, for now, however, we will be discussing how to set up building project teams for long-term success. By rethinking traditional approaches, we can create sustainable, future-ready solutions by aligning with the true vision of digital transformation, as well as meeting short-term profit requirements. Sounds like a thing we all want to try to do, right? Here to tell us how to do that and achieve those goals is the CEO of Sara. Please give a warm good morning welcome to Salla Ekhardt.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Symmetry, for inviting me to be the opening speaker today here. I'm very excited to be on stage to talk about this topic and spend the next 25 minutes with you. So overall, to kind of give you a background of why I'm going to be talking about the certain aspects of how we can recalibrate our minds into thinking how we can actually create profit in short term, but really think about the long-term benefits and the outcomes of the built environment industry, and how we can actually create the motivation for innovation while still thinking and keeping in mind that we are still in make-profit industry, regardless of the very slim profit lines that we're used to in the built environment industry. And as my background, I never thought that I would be on the CEO track. It was my dream to become a professor when I was in school for architecture and civil engineering. So I'm an architect by training with structural engineering as my major and construction management as my second major. So I'm kind of a hybrid already to begin with. And in the early stages of my career, I was on the academic research track, hence the daydream of becoming an academic professor. But then, thanks to the 2008 market crash, I had to visit the industry side of things, do actual architectural design and structural engineering, and really get hands-on into how the architects and the designers and the engineers are actually designing and drawing the buildings. And what really surprised me, that since I was already on the BIM track, I had developed BIM processes and BIM technologies, had a lot of interviews and discussions with people about BIM, what it actually means, what's the definition of BIM, and what the expectations of BIM were already back then. There was a lot of talk about technology, not so much about finance, and not so much about the modeling process or the outcomes that we were trying to achieve using the technology. It was very much a discussion about can we create drawings faster? Can we create beautiful renderings? And it already felt like we were derailing the industry from its goal, creating something that is easier and more affordable to manage from the real estate owner's perspective. There was very little discussion about digital project management and digital construction. The contractors themselves, they were busy creating in-house technologies and processes to help them build faster. But everything was still documents-based and drawings-based. And people were using BIM technology for drafting. They were using it as it was a CAD tool, which it is, but it was not meant to be a drafting tool for creating drawings. And then after I finished my short career in architectural design and structural engineering, I moved over to applied research side of things, and we started doing research on how BIM can actually enable us to create smart cities, and what smart cities actually mean, and what type of processes should we create for sustainable deep renovations, and how BIM technology can help renovate and create a digital transformation for renovation construction. And in 2014, I got my green card for the United States, so I moved to the United States for 9 years, joined the dark side of the industry, general contracting, and saw it as my opportunity to see what's going on the implementation side of things. Is it true that the problem is the architects, that they are using the tools wrong and they don't understand the processes? Or was it that it was the owner's fault, that the owners, they were not demanding enough, and they were not allowing people to use technology as it's engineered to be used? Or what was the problem, the general contractors that people love to blame, that it's the general contractors' fault? They are the ones that are building things, so they should do something about the digital transformation. So what was the common issue was that everyone was thinking, what's in it for me? They were very siloed, and they were always thinking that it's someone else's problem to solve. Nobody was picking up the problems or the questions that were industry-wide questions. How can we create profit in short term when our projects actually last very long time? People are looking for referrals from manufacturing industry, the car industry, but they were not thinking about how car industry is creating a product and creating hundreds of thousands of the same product. So if they fix the process or introduce new types of tools, they were implementing the same thing over and over again. Hence, they were seeing benefits in digital transformation, whereas the built environment industry was still struggling. All our projects are individual pieces of art, if we are thinking like an architect. Or if we are thinking like a general contractor, we are in it only for the short disruption period of time when we're building something. It's only 1 year, maybe, that we are building even skyscrapers these days. And the owners, they were struggling to see the value because they were never getting any relational databases back. Nobody was really handing over any useful as-built models. People were not talking about digital transformation from the perspective of people or management of teams, or from the perspective of digitalizing processes. And after working for a couple of really large general contractors and seeing what the digital transformation opportunities were on that side of the industry, Microsoft called me and asked me, like, are you ready to hop on the owner side of the industry and see how you might be able to help us? So I joined Microsoft for 4 years and took on the role of Director of Transformation. And that was my opportunity to kind of start pushing the industry harder towards how we might be actually thinking about digital transformation, while also keeping in mind that the owners are actually finance companies or finance organizations that are not necessarily technologists. They're not necessarily people who have a degree in architecture or engineering. They are oftentimes not from general contractor background. They were very oftentimes people with legal background or finance background. Some of them came from music. So when I was talking to them, they oftentimes told me that, Salla, I don't understand what you're talking about. I was like, is it my accent? I'm from Finland, so maybe it's my accent. And they said, no, it's not your accent. You're speaking quite clearly. But the problem is that we don't have the vocabulary. We don't understand what you're talking about. We don't have context to what you're talking about as digital transformation. And BIM was something that was maybe past in other people's careers at some point in time, but the processes were still based on paper drawings that might have been in PDF format. But the process was still analog, hence the benefits were not really becoming reality. But then I thought that, well, since we are at Microsoft, maybe I should switch the gears into talking about technology more. And again, people told me, like, we're not technologists, so don't try to talk to us like a technologist. We need to be focusing on finance and proving out how we should plan for our CapEx, how we should be planning for our OpEx, and how we can actually tie everything to quarters. Even though the projects take maybe a decade, we were working on several campus projects. And planning and building and designing campus easily takes a decade from start to finish. So there was obviously a need for creating clarity on what digital transformation actually means for our industry. So hence, I developed the digital building lifecycle, which is the circle on the left here. And I published a book about this at the end of last month to really clarify to people that what digital transformation is about people. It's about transforming your organization to start thinking digitally and start thinking more about what's in it for them. Not about what's in it for me, but more about what's the legacy that I'm leaving behind, so that we understand that am I the weakest link in the whole life cycle, the technical life cycle of the building, or is it actually the architect or the owner or the general contractor or someone else? So I saw the opportunity to kind of create clarity and the necessity for understanding that we individuals, we are the weak link or the strong link in enabling the short-term benefits of digital transformation, but also the makers of long-term outputs and outcomes, the impact that we want to see in the industry. So when thinking about the digital building lifecycle, oftentimes when people think about creating or delivering a construction project, they think about it linearly. And they think about it in planning phase, they think about it as the three-step design phase, the short period of building something and constructing something. Then there is the handover, and then nobody really thinks about the owner operations and what happens when the building is built, even though 90% of the total cost of the building's life cycle comes from operations phase. But we're not really thinking about it when we are designing something. We are traditionally busy creating drawings and creating lots and lots of documentation and data that actually becomes dark data or dead data. Nobody knows how to use it. Nobody knows where it is. It's siloed somewhere in a project bank. Someone has created hundreds of pages of documentation, and they've been really good at it. But the problem is that nobody else knows about it, and it's not created for them. They don't necessarily understand what they should be doing with the data that has already been produced for them. And there's a lot of need for creating data because we think that it's necessary or it's crucial for our work. But when we look at the critical path or the critical delivery process, we might be ending up creating a lot of spin-offs that are actually dead ends in terms of digital transformation or data management. So with the digital building lifecycle, we're actually focusing on creating the strategies for all these steps before we actually start designing or planning or implementing anything. And that way, we are ensuring that what we are focusing on follows the 4 different categories. We need to be conscious about the quality of data that we are creating and making sure that in today's world, when we are creating building information models that become a component or the basis for high-quality digital twins and hopefully metaverse experiences, data needs to be highly data secure. It needs to be something that can be audited, verified, managed, and it needs to have a purpose. It needs to have a context for what is the reason that you actually created the data to begin with. And we need to understand that the data itself is like grains of sand. It's very affordable. It doesn't really have a lot of value, but there's plenty of it. And when you start thinking about who you're creating data for, and you start leading with compassion and empathy, and you start thinking about who is the customer that you have, not necessarily only you or your project team, if you're an architect, You might be serving real estate owners or the future tenants, the future owners, the general contractors, sustainability experts. There's plenty of different specialists and team members and stakeholders in the total life cycle of a built environment, a building or an infrastructure. So we need to be thinking about how are we actually enabling the refinement of data into information. And when we think about information, it's like having a beach. If a data is a grain of sand, information is like a beach. It has more value to it. It starts to have more context. But again, if you have poor data management, it becomes useless, and it loses its value. There might be plenty of it, and nowadays, the technology is catching up on what the issues and the problems with people managing data is. It is actually becoming a useful tool and support technology for people making decisions and dealing with data, that it's saving us from ourselves. But in order for data to become information, we need to be able to structure the information and deliver more context to what kind of decisions are people actually making based on the information that has been refined from the data that we've created. But then it still doesn't stop there. The information needs to be combined with other pieces of information, which means that you might have like multiple hundreds or thousands of streams of data that you need to be managing and keeping secure but accessible at the same time. So information is starting to create more basis for informed decision making. So when we are thinking about how can we actually keep the project profitable, and we are dealing with project controls and worrying about the schedule and worrying about the budget and worrying about sustainability, worrying about who is going to be building something or producing something, etc. There needs to be a context for making those decisions, so that you're not just making up a decision because you have the authority to make a decision. You need to have the understanding of cause and effect, so that when new questions come, you have educated, informed decision making. And that way, when thinking about what's happening short term, you're not leaving behind a legacy that is going to pop up later on during the digital building lifecycle or a technical lifecycle of the building, and someone saying that who is to blame for this wrong decision here? Why was that decision made? Who made it? So it ultimately becomes a question of your reputation or your company's reputation. And in the most beautiful option of all, it should be a question of who made this? Who was the person that was in charge when this building was built for the first time, and now we want to renovate it or upgrade it or convert it, do something with the existing building. And they want to seek you out because they already know that you did a great job managing the data that you were responsible for or authoring or managing. And you created information that was actually supporting your project team make better decisions and reflect on the past mistakes to avoid them, not repeat them. We are really good at repeating past mistakes in this industry. But with the digital building lifecycle, the opportunity is to learn from the past mistakes and be more proactive and predictive of what we are actually aiming to achieve. What is the outcome that we want to achieve as the industry, not only what are the outputs in short periods of time. But then, again, information level is not where we stop. We need to be thinking about how people are actually leveling up as their careers progress in this beautiful industry. We want to keep people working for the built environment industry, but we need to create opportunities for people to expand and not only stay on the track that they might have stumbled upon or chosen early on. We need to be able to create opportunities for people to switch gears a little bit. If someone is already done doing architectural design, they might hop over to structural engineering, do a little bit of extra studying, or it might be that they end up working for a general contractor company and managing projects, doing construction management, doing digital project management, and rocking it. So overall, as people are progressing with their careers and they deliver multiples and multiples of projects, they're gaining knowledge. So all the data and the information that we've created and managed and delivered and refined becomes knowledge for people that have understanding of how to apply the information into problems or solving issues before they become problems on the projects that they are responsible for. And that, again, is the opportunity for making profit short term. That if we are empowering people with good information, with data that we can actually audit and verify that it is not a copy-paste, but it's something that is from the actual project and not from a similar project, people can be more empowered to actually apply their expertise and also the best practices that they've learned over the years or over the months, if they're very early on in their careers, for efficiency in what they are responsible for, but also supporting innovation. That we are not telling people anymore that this is how we've always done it in this industry. It's the only way that I know how to do it, so I want you to repeat how I've always done it. That has been the legacy and the thinking of the built environment industry. So we've been effectively holding ourselves back, but also holding back the future generations that we are putting a lot of hope on. A lot of people have been talking about how the next generation of builders and architects and engineers are digital natives. They're not digital natives. They might be born into a world where digital transformation has already gone through multiple different industry sectors, and they were born with iPads and all kinds of technology that we were not necessarily born with. I'm a Gen Xer myself, so I learned the analog way of doing things, and that's how I got so excited about technology, that it actually allows people to innovate and make the good questions of, is this really how we want to be continuing to implement this process? Or is this deliverable actually helping us deliver the best impact or the long-term outcome that the owner or the investor wants to achieve? So we can start seeing more simplification of everything that we're doing, because people have the best tools, they have the best processes, and they have a digitally transformed organization around them, supporting them make better decisions and be hence more productive, more effective, and hence more profitable, even in the short term. And when we are thinking about where we are aiming for organization-wise with the digital building lifecycle, is creating wisdom. So we have people that have stayed loyal to their organizations all the way from the beginning of their careers, and they've climbed the career ladder, the corporate ladder, and they've arrived at the top. And suddenly, they are the ultimate decision makers. But hence, it becomes either the opportunity or it becomes the obstacle for the organizational wisdom. Because if we, as the leaders of companies, don't understand that digital transformation actually leads to increasing the wisdom of your organization by leading with strategic foresight and ethical decision making and building trust, we become the dinosaur at the top of the organization, inhibiting innovation and digital transformation that should go through the entire organization. Hence, to summarize things, we have 1 minute left. What I want our audience to take away today is that digital transformation is not about technology, it is about people. It is about people who are managing the business processes that are clearly defined in order to create and generate profit and wealth for the organization, and the technology is there to support them. Even AI, it's a support intelligence. It's not something to delegate things to. It is something that is there to help you elevate your knowledge and then contribute to the total wisdom of your organization. Thank you.